Hello, everybody, and welcome to Chapter Select, a seasonal podcast where we bounce back and forth between a series exploring their evolution, design, and legacy. For Season 5, we are covering Resident Evil. Did I do a good impersonation? Do you think so?
No, not too bad.
Okay.
Yeah.
My name is Max Robertson. I'm joined, as always, by Logan Moore. Hi, Logan.
Hey, we're back to the video games.
Back to the video games.
Movies are gone. Back to games, which means larger time sinks.
Resident Evil does have movies. We're not discussing them.
It's true.
So
We're not discussing the Resident Evil films. No, what's her name? Alice discussions. I think that's her name in those movies.
I don't know. I've never seen those. I've only seen
Same.
Welcome to Raccoon City.
Same. You and me both.
In the theater together.
You and me both.
This is why we watched Fast and Furious, or part of the reason was so that we could play all of the Resident Evil games, because Resident Evil 4 Remake is coming out fairly soon.
Yeah, so this is kind of the inverse of what we did with Fast, which was I've never seen any of those movies, but I was interested from afar, and you brought me into the fold, and now we're doing the same thing here, sort of in reverse with Resident Evil, where I have played all of these games, and you have played none of them, and so, or pretty much none of them.
Very few.
Yeah, you've played parts of 7 and Village, I believe, and that's about it.
Yeah.
And so
half
now I'm
of
going
2,
half of 2, and then
Platinum 3.
3 Remake, yeah. So now I'm bringing you into the fold with this formally, which I think will be quite fun.
I'm looking forward to it because we've recorded some of the episodes actually before recording this, a little peek behind the curtain. But, you know, my introduction was pretty much solely through Resident Evil 7 in VR. And so I'm excited to explore the past games and the new remakes and kind of see how it all comes together. I'm actually loving the old games, I think, a bit more than some of the more modern stuff. So I'm very excited to finally dig into this legendary video game series.
Yeah, some of the things you're saying here about how you like the old games a little bit more is interesting to me based on some of the discussions we've already had. So I'm curious to see where you'll stand once we get to the end of this season. With that in mind, we are doing a little bit of a different order for this season. We're going back to our bounce back and forth sort of core of Chapter Select here. So we will be going from some older entries in the series to newer entries, but we're not doing it in the way you would potentially expect.
We tailor-made the order this season around both the release order of these games, remakes, and how they fit in with older games, because we have some core older games. So it's kind of this fusion of new, old, release order, and some narrative stuff that makes a bit of sense.
And not only that, but we're not doing, if there has been a remake in the series, we are not playing the original game as well.
Yes.
Except for in the case of Resident Evil 4.
Yes.
That is the only one, and the reason we're doing that is because that game is not out yet, and that game will actually release midway through our recording of this season. So we will be playing that game in real time, and we thought that was going to be a fun way to build up to that game when it releases in March 2023.
Yes.
With that being said, though, here is the order we are going with for Season 5. It will start with the original Resident Evil, the remake, I guess you should say. The HD remake is the one we specifically played. Yeah, the remake. So Resident Evil 1, Resident Evil 7, Resident Evil 0, Resident Evil 2 Remake, Resident Evil 4, Resident Evil 3 Remake, Resident Evil Code Veronica, Resident Evil Village, or Resident Evil 8, whatever you want to call it, Resident Evil 5, Resident Evil 6, and then we will end-cap things with Resident Evil 4 Remake. It's a little different, as we said, where if we were to do a true back and forth, we would start with Resident Evil 1 and then go to
Village.
4 Remake.
Well, 4 Remake wouldn't be out by then, but yes.
It wouldn't, but that's kind of the problem that was presented with this season too, is do we bounce back and forth in chronological order or game number order? Because obviously Resident Evil 2, the remake, is newer, but I don't know. So this was a little bit of a different way that we had to construct this list, and I think we did so in a way that makes sense and will be conducive to good conversations, which is what our core of this podcast is always going to be about. Yeah, for sure.
So I'm excited about it. I think our order is pretty snazzy, if I do say so myself, and I think it's lending itself to discovering these remakes in a better way against the context of where they came from the series and how they've been improved or maybe not so much improved coming into the modern era. You know, what is good from the old games, what's good in the new ones. So we've got this fusion, and there's a bunch of different ways to play these games too, from on PlayStation, which is predominantly, I think, where we're both playing them, to things like in VR or the old games on GameCube and things like that. So there's a lot of different platforms and methods of playing these games that we'll be exploring as well.
And I think that's one of the things I would encourage people. I mean, if you're listening to this, I assume you might be playing or listening along with us. For this coming season, I don't think we've ever played a series of games that is going to be more easily accessible than Resident Evil. All of these games are widely available across Xbox, PlayStation, Switch, and PC. You can play the full series across all of those platforms. Yeah, except for in the case of, I guess, 4 Remake will be the only one that will not be on Switch, I'm thinking. But I think everything else is on Switch via cloud versions and stuff. I'm not sure about that with 2 and 3. Yeah. Code Veronica, I guess.
I think 2 and 3 are cloud versions on Switch Remake. So those games are accessible to you there. They go on sale all the time digitally on Switch and PlayStation and Xbox. So they're super accessible, which has been really nice and refreshing compared to some of our previous seasons where it's like, how do I get this game or how do I play that per se? So I'm very excited about it. My shelf is now all I have the whole Resident Evil collection now. And now I'm looking at some Wii games. I'm like, should I go back and get these Dark Chronicles games and all this other stuff?
Outbreak on PS2.
Yeah, I'm really diving down the Resident Evil rabbit hole, and it's super, super fun.
The other thing we did want to point out here up top is just a couple of the guests that we'll have on this season. This could change, but we do have a couple locked in so that you can look forward to hearing from. Ricky Freck will be coming back on the show. We've got Michael Ruiz coming back on the show, and then we will have a couple newcomers as well this season. Dustin Furman from Last Stand Media will be joining us for one episode, and our good old podcasting buddy Jared Weich will be on an episode as well. And we might have some others joining in too, but we're not sure yet, so we'll see.
Yeah, it's still very much in production. We've got a healthy lead time on here thanks to Fast and Furious, but we're very much looking forward to the rest of this season. It starts next week on January 11th, and will carry us all the way through in a bi-weekly manner to May 31st. So basically the first 5 months of the year is just going to be Resident Evil Town here on Chapter Select. So thank you so much for listening to Chapter Select. We're looking forward to Season 5. If you'd like to check out previous seasons, you can right here in the podcast feed or go to chapterselect.com. We've got things ranging from The Last of Us to Banjo-Kazooie. We just wrapped up our first film-focused season with The Fast and the Furious, so you can check out those and then hopefully join us here for Season 5 Resident Evil. If you'd like to follow Logan on Twitter, you can at Moreman12 and his writing over at comicbook.com. You can follow myself on Twitter at MaxRoberts143 and my writing over at maxfrequency.net. And until next week, everyone, clear your inventory, maybe pack some green herbs, travel light, be ready to open some doors, turn off the lights, because it's time for us to play Resident Evil. It was a little high there at the end. Kind of the evil didn't come out right. Adios. Chapter Select is a Max Frequency production. This episode was researched, produced, and edited by me, Max Roberts. Season 5 is hosted by Logan Moore and myself. Season 5 is all about Resident Evil. For more on this season, go to chapterselect.com/season 5. Follow the show at Chapter Select and check out previous seasons at chapterselect.com.